you'll have to turn around 180 degrees. Past him, he's just come to the surface.
I'll put you in a position where the whale shark will be on your starboard side. 10 metres to run before he gets to you. Okay, down on your right a little bit, David. Come down about 5 degrees on your starboard, please. That looks good. Right.
Why can't we see them?
That's looking good. He's out on your starboard side at about your 1 o'clock position.
He's seeing things. he must be down a way.
And he's in your 10 o'clock position.
You got him? You got him.
Don't.
Stay there, stay!
This is a whale shark, a creature so big and so rarely seen, it's been called the dinosaur of the deep. This fish, the size of a whale, is the obsession of one man. And this is the story of his determination to find the last of Earth's giants. The far north of Western Australia is one of the least explored places in the world. These waters, along the Ningaloo Coral Reef in the remotest part of the world, are the whale shark's playground. Jeff Taylor and his wife Joanne came here to fulfill a dream. When Jeff heard a diver talking about a whale shark, he knew enough to realize how very few of them had ever been seen anywhere in the world. For Jeff, the decision to come here was natural.
I've always been a keen amateur naturalist, and I had the idea a long time ago that wherever I finally settled, it would be fascinating to study a natural ecosystem. I'd always thought it would be a forest or a salt marsh or something of that nature. I'd never really dreamt that it would be in remote Western Australia and my involvement would be with the ocean and coral reefs.
Our location is 1,200 miles north of Perth, on Australia's west coast. On the edge of the desert sits the tiny town of Exmouth on the Northwest Cape Peninsula. Ningaloo Reef runs alongside, just half a mile offshore. Jeff's search for the whale sharks began 10 years ago. He and Joanne spent weeks and months on his catamaran patrolling Ningaloo, but the whale sharks were elusive. It was hot and the team was tired. Even Strider the dog was bored.
In March 1983, we were looking for whale sharks down the west coast and had searched for nearly 3 hours and were getting totally disheartened when suddenly a huge shark surfaced underneath the boat. It came up right underneath the bow. Andy, go round to the left. No, Andy, right, go round to the right.
That way.
Sorry.
Oh, right in front.
No, don't rev the engine.
No, just slow, quietly.
Very
That's it.
gently.
Right, okay, look.
For the first time, Jeff encountered one of Earth's giants, face to face.
Well, it was an overwhelming experience. The first time I ever swam with a whale shark, to be in the water alongside such a huge creature and be able to approach it so closely and observe it without it seeming to react or be aggressive towards one was quite phenomenal.
That day, Jeff swam closer to whale sharks than he'd believed possible. and the gentle giant didn't mind at all.
And of course the whale shark is this extraordinary shape, the huge ridges along the body, the enormous head and the wide mouth, and then the beautiful pattern of spots on the back of the whale shark and the line.
Whale sharks have inspired Jeff ever since. He has continued to swim with them, film them, and learn about them. Whale sharks are sharks, but they're harmless. This big fish, about 40 feet long, weighing 14 tons, feeds on the tiniest creatures in the sea, sucking them in with huge mouthfuls of water. But they're so hard to find that even scientists know little more about them than that. Jeff was baffled. What brought them here to Ningaloo Reef?
Good morning. How are you gentlemen this morning?
Diving with whale sharks is only part of Jeff's life.
Those temperatures come down beautifully, right?
He's a doctor by profession. In this small country outpost, he can combine his passionate interest in nature with the challenge of rural medicine.
Bit of luck, you'll be out of here a couple of days, okay?
Jeff spends every moment of free time exploring the marine environment.
How's the car?
To understand what brought the whale sharks here, he realized he needed to know more about Ningaloo Coral Reef.
The Ningaloo Reef stretches for 160 miles along the coast. It's a most fantastic coral reef system, as good as any coral reef system in the world. It's one of the most accessible reefs in the world. It supports an incredible variety of corals and reef fish that depend upon it. We had discovered that the whale sharks were turning up in big numbers on Ningaloo Reef in March and April each year, and the question was why? At first we had the idea that the Lewin current that starts to flow particularly strongly at that time of year might be bringing in the whale sharks. This is a current of warm water that flows down from the tropics down the west coast of Australia.
A warm current, a coral reef, and the whale sharks. How did they fit together? His enthusiasm became knowledge, and soon he knew more about the whale shark pattern than anyone. They were turning up regularly, and whereas whale sharks were rarely sighted elsewhere, here at Ningaloo he had stumbled across a whole colony.
At first we had the idea that they might be migrating along the reef to travel to warmer tropical waters for the winter. We also wondered whether the whale sharks might be mating here. Whenever large numbers of animals gather together, it seems likely that they're gathering to mate.
But an amazing discovery about the coral reef itself swept all Jeff's theories aside.
It wasn't till 1986 that I first learnt about the phenomenon of coral spawning. This is one of the most remarkable natural phenomena of the world. On a particular night, about an hour after sunset, all the corals of a coral reef spawn together, releasing huge numbers of eggs and sperm into the water.
It's the 27th of March, about 10 days after the Easter full moon in the Australian autumn. Jeff has calculated that the spawning should happen tonight. Corals are living organisms and feed on microscopic particles in the water. They reproduce sexually. When the time is right, these tiny buds will release their eggs and spawn, and fertilization will take place. To Jeff, the discovery of spawning at Ningaloo was vitally important.
It's amazing to think that this fantastic phenomenon had never been observed until the early 1980s on the Great Barrier Reef. And it wasn't until 1985 that a West Australian scientist discovered that this phenomenon happens in West Australia. And suddenly we realized that this phenomenon was happening about the time that the whale sharks appear on Ningaloo Reef each year.
Jeff knew that the coral spawn had to be the missing link, drawing the whale sharks to the reef. But for what reason?
Can you just watch? Oh, hang on.
Watching the spawning each year has become a family affair.
Oh dear.
By now, the whole reef has
It's
erupted.
actually getting rather unpleasant. It's so thick that you can't really see. It's just thick pink sludge and worms and eggs. Oh dear.
It's a bit dirty.
It's a bit dirty, isn't it, Jeremy? Yeah. But at least it happened tonight. It was really went off with a bang.
The cloying, sweet, sour smell of the spawn is overpowering,
No camera gear, is there?
and the pink sludge is everywhere.
Daddy's stuff.
Can I get something to take the camera? Thank you.
Daddy's coming over the water. Daddy's coming, yeah.
Well, it's phenomenal. When you turn a light on, within a few moments you're swamped by them. Have you had a taste of it?
Haven't tasted it. We've been eating it all night. Tastes like
It tastes disgusting. I got one in my mouth.
Just like caviar.
Worse than caviar. What is caviar anyway? Fish eggs.
Gosh, yes. Where's that beer? Lovely.
In the morning light, a giant pink slick of spawn transforms seawater to bouillabaisse. Could the whale sharks be coming here to feed on this rich soup? 4 years ago, Jeff published a research paper about the link between the spawning and the arrival of the whale sharks, and managed to get a grant for aerial surveys to track them.
whale shark midsection heading north. There's a dugong down there and a calf.
Joe and a team of volunteers work with Jeff from January to May, testing Jeff's theories.
Whale shark, upper mid section heading south.
With the aerial surveys, we've confirmed that at most times of the year there are very few sharks to be seen on the surface of the water. But as the coral spawning period approaches, sharks start to appear. And the peak of numbers always seems to be around about the time of coral spawning, or else in the 2 to 3 weeks following that.
No, I didn't count my points.
I think we saw 31 altogether.
31 sightings in one day is possibly the highest tally ever recorded. It's just 1 week after the coral spawned. From the air, the sharks can be seen clearly. Through this research, Jeff has already learned enough to disprove his earlier theories.
I now suspect that in fact we will find the sharks do not migrate at all, and that this population of sharks lives out in the deep waters, in the deep trenches out off Ningaloo Reef, and come in to feed on the reef at certain times of the year when there is an enormous amount of food available. And that the local food chain here is extremely important to their survival.
But the spawn is only part of the food chain. Exmouth Gulf on the eastern side of the Northwest Cape is rich in marine life. These warm, protected waters are breeding grounds for enormous numbers of fish and shellfish. Running down the Gulf coastline are lush mangrove swamps. At high tide, their roots are covered by the sea. When the tide retreats, the nutrient-rich mud is an ideal source of food. These mini volcanoes are the homes of tiny crustaceans. They feed by sifting through the mud for debris, and each time the tide returns, their food supply is replenished. Another scavenger lurking here is the fiddler crab, feasting off tiny organisms swept in by the sea and trapped in the mud. And the tide will service these creatures in another way. When baby crabs are born, the larvae will be washed away from here by the tide. First to the Gulf and then beyond, and this adds to the food chain of the reef. Although the Gulf is sheltered, strong ocean-bound tides flow towards its mouth. In March and April, the south-flowing ocean current becomes stronger. This is the tropical Lewin current, which sweeps across the mouth of the Gulf and carries the food-laden water with it. As the warm waters leave the Gulf and flow down the reef, dugong, sea cows follow. Jeff photographed the shy mammals, once thought to be mermaids, right out on Ningaloo Reef itself. Water temperatures reach 27 degrees centigrade, and soon the giants begin to arrive, attracted by the warmth and the food-filled sea. These manta rays feed on plankton, tiny plants, and animals which drift on the tide. Whale sharks, too, feed on plankton, filtering huge volumes of water across hundreds of teeth and gills. Jeff filmed this shark right above the reef. If his hunch is right, the sharks are definitely here for the food, but perhaps not for coral spawn.
Come on, Strides.
Jeff's determination to solve the mystery of the whale shark's appearance here has culminated in a major research effort. With a dedicated team of volunteers, he's going to try to find out how many whale sharks there are at Ningaloo and why they turn up at the same time each year. Joe and Pat are the core team, and Mitch is a skilled boatsman. For Dr. Jeff Taylor, amateur naturalist turned expert, it's the start of his greatest adventure. If Jeff's predictions are correct, the peak whale shark season is about to begin. This season, Jeff has funding to charter a 50-foot professional dive boat, a deep-water vessel powerful enough to follow the sharks right along the reef and even out to sea.
How are we this morning?
Fine, how are you?
Good.
David Heafy, skipper of Business 2, welcomes them on board.
Ready for dock?
Oops, dog's coming over.
Watch the dinghy, so as you take the weight out of it, it comes up and guillotines your toe off rather nicely.
Business 2 will be home to Jeff and Joe and their team for the next 28 days.
Hang her off the back.
Skipper Dave Heafy knows Ningaloo well. His skill at negotiating the reef is essential to the success of Jeff's research program.
We are trying to photograph and identify every whale shark that we encounter. Along with that, we are also going to tag quite a number of the sharks with a small fish tag. So the strategy that we're going to pursue is that we'll try and put each tag in a different position on the shark, and we'll be keeping a record of the site of attachment of each little fish tag, and we'll be photographing each shark so that we've got identifying marks on the sharks as well. But everybody must be ready to get in the water within about 60 seconds of a shark being sighted. So you've got to have your wetsuit or whatever you're going to dive with on, weight belt handy, fins, mask ready to grab, so that within about 60 seconds of a shark being sighted, we can be going over the side. Okay, I think the plane will be over any moment. We perhaps ought to get ready.
It's time to rendezvous at the first location. No one has ever tried tagging and photographing whale sharks before, and there's no knowing how they'll react. But Jeff carried out some trials a year ago.
Put the tag in, the tag's on the end here. It's fairly firmly attached, so you won't lose it when you're swimming through the water. Try and actually get the spear tip almost touching the shark. That way, you'll guarantee that you penetrate up to about there. You'll never be left with about that much tag showing. Try and hold it at 45 degrees angle. That way you don't have to try and pull the spear back upwards. The other thing is, if you don't manage to get a tag in, make sure you unload the gun before you get into the boat, because they get very shirty on board if you hand a loaded gun up for obvious reasons.
To locate the whale sharks along the reef, Jeff will have a radio link to a spotter plane. The team will dive only when the sharks cruise near the surface. And they're dependent on the pilot to find them.
Roger, Jeff, take up a bearing of approximately 210 degrees. 210 degrees. You should practically have a visual on him very, very shortly. About 50 metres to run, David.
Making the drop in the right place is vital, and that's down to teamwork.
Be able to spot him from any second now. Go.
The plan is for the diver to drop right in front of the shark. Once the divers are in the water, there's nothing anyone can do to help. The shark can move so fast, they have no chance of catching it. The idea is for Jeff to take identification photos and for Pat to tag. But the first shark of the season is a disappointment. It's a baby, a juvenile about 18 feet long and very nervous. A flick of the massive tail, and it's gone.
But these Japanese want to get back as soon as possible.
Is there any way that we can...
I don't know. You're just
once you actually go past it, that's when the glare comes in the water, and I completely lose sight of it.
Well,
back there.
if that's the track of the shark,
Yes.
I come along like that, I get far off in front, and I turn off in front of him.
Yes.
And when I'm directly in front of him, that's when I say go.
Right,
So the
okay.
boat should be at right angles to the men, but it's not hard and fast rule.
No,
But
I
if
know.
you can't see them and I'm saying go for it,
Yes.
then assume that it's
Go.
right off our beam.
Okay, fine.
And let them know that, I think,
Yes,
as well.
okay. Bargain.
It's very difficult to see anything today. It's very
That's right.
glary.
Dive assistant Dennis Robinson is first out. There's always a team of three, one to tag, one to photograph, and another trained diver for safety. But Jeff didn't even get a good picture.
No, I just followed its tail down into the murky depths. I thought he seemed to stop swimming for a moment, and I thought I was going to catch him, and so I kept going, but couldn't get near him.
Negative, Dave. At the moment, most of the sharks appear to be on the bottom. We can see them through the blue. I think you should turn around 180 degrees and head to your north now. I'll see if I can put you onto a good one.
Although there are whale sharks about, The team dives only when they're near the surface. And soon, they're in luck again.
Well, David's obviously put the power on, so I assume the plane's put him onto one. We're heading off towards the other boats, allowing him to win. Yeah, we definitely found another one.
It's not that little one again. I hope we get a decent one.
Roger, Jeff, it's looking good. You're coming alongside him now. A nice big whale shark, looks like the best one for the day.
Whoa, look at him.
Doesn't look too big. He's only probably about 18 foot, something like that. It's done a bit better there now.
Oh, I see him, he's over there. Right.
Okay.
Hang on. That is locked. It's still locked, but yeah, keep it away.
Yeah, we're
20
ready.
yards away.
Yep.
Okay, you get set up. Okay.
A perfect drop, right in front of the shark.
It's always an excitement to be in the water alongside such a huge animal, an animal with such power. And he's just going off to one side, and this huge expanse of his back is just opening in front of me as I twist around and try and take a photograph of his head. As I sit over the top of his head would be almost the full stretch of my arms. Everything underwater looks half as big again, and even though this isn't a really huge whale shark, it just looks so immense in the water. I'm sitting right along the shark's head at the moment, and his eye keeps coming out and looking at me, and then he withdraws it. He sucks it back into his head, and it twists a little bit as it goes inside. And then he seems unsure of me, and he'll pop it out again for a moment just to have a quick look. Every time I look into the eye of a whale shark, I really wonder, what is he thinking? Who's in there? What's going on in that head? No one else in the world has ever attempted tagging whale sharks, but I feel comfortable that the tiny little tags that we are attaching to the sharks won't cause them any harm. In relation to the size of the shark, the insertion of the tag would be smaller than the smallest needle that we use for giving injections to people, almost like a mosquito bite.
The first tag of the season successfully located, and this whale shark seems completely unperturbed.
Surface again in front of the boat.
Well, just get on there with me, dropped off again. Drop here. Easy now. He is with his tail out the water now. So shark number 2 for today. So code, what is it, A13-2. And I reckon it was over 20 foot, that one. So it's 20 to 25. And we don't know the sex yet, but I've taken a full set of ID photos.
Jeff takes a series of photos from both sides of the shark. The pattern of spots behind the gills is quite different on each one. His research is at a very early stage, and no one even knows how long whale sharks live.
There are still a lot of mysteries about whale sharks. One of the things is the age of them. When you see a whale shark, how old is it? It may be that some of the really big whale sharks, the 40-footers, are very old. They may be even over 100 years old.
Another mystery is how whale sharks locate their food. Whale sharks are suction filter feeders, sucking in vast quantities of water containing tiny fish and plankton. The golden trevally fish is safe. This whale shark isn't feeding. When it does, it sucks a huge volume of water across its 300 rows of small teeth. Then through filter screens inside these gill slits. And the whale shark can take in water at enormous speed. The story of Jonah being swallowed by the whale may have originated with whale sharks. If largish fish or foreign objects get swept in, the whale shark ejects them by turning out its stomach. But this mighty shark doesn't seem to be feeding at all. It seems to be resting. The two flaps just above the mouth cover a kind of nasal groove. There may be nothing attractive nearby.
Sometimes we dive in next to a whale shark that's cruising along the surface and the water's completely clear and there's no feed in the water for them at all. So it's something we don't understand at the moment, whether they are just basking in the warmer surface water and enjoying the warmer temperature of the surface water, or whether it's something to do with their mating behavior. We don't really understand.
The remoras, a sucker fish, hitch a ride underneath on its soft white belly. When the whale shark finds food, they will eat too. But for now, Jeff has already taken his ID photographs. Joe's about to tag. Ouch! A wallop from the huge tail. Joe's been hit.
Oh dear. What happened? Oh, I got walloped again. But it just bounced back out, point blank. It just came back out.
If you're too close, it won't go in.
So
You've got to give the spear enough room to accelerate.
I think I bent the spear a bit. Have a look at it. Oh, he gave me a wallop with his tail as he went past.
Oh. How did you bend the spear?
Well, I don't know, I just pulled it back. Somebody can bang that straight.
You got whacked by the tail.
What do you mean nearly did? I got whacked by the tail.
Jeff can tell exactly which shark that was from his slides. The spots on the tough brown skin make intriguing patterns.
The markings are very distinctive, especially on the left-hand side. And we photographed the same shark again the following day on more than one occasion. And in fact, I didn't initially realize it was the same shark, but going through the slides today, it's quite obvious that that is the same shark as the day before. We also are trying to photograph each animal's genitals and identify the sex of each individual shark.
This immature male hasn't yet mated. When it does, one of the organs in between the fins will penetrate the female. The claspers on this mature male hang freely and are ragged at the edges. Jeff believes it may have mated recently. Originally, Jeff believed that the whale sharks might be coming to Ningaloo to mate, but that theory hasn't been borne out. This 30-footer is one of only 2 mature males he's seen all season.
One of the real mysteries that we've identified this year is that almost all the sharks we're seeing are immature males. We've only seen one mature male this year. So this is really quite a mystery. Where are all the female sharks?
Well, he's quite a beast, that one. He's the first really big male that we've seen with very long claspers. They're long, they're like a big salami sausage about this long, and they're all ragged and frilly at the end, which suggests that he's been mating recently. In fact, there was seen to be a little bit of bloody stuff on the upper side of them. So we've at last found a mature male. I don't know whether we had to pull it to pieces already, so we might have rain.
After 2 days, the storm blew itself out. And when it was over, there was no sign of the whale sharks. Whale sharks are only found in warm tropical waters. The storm brought in colder seas which welled up from the depths. It had put an end to the research. The seas were too rough for spotting or diving. On business too, the team's spirits were low, and Jeff was morose. His great fear is that the whale sharks will leave Ningaloo. That's because whole tracts of the coral reef have been destroyed, eaten by a parasite. Jeff first saw the problem just 6 years ago. In the northern section, it was like a graveyard.
When I first saw the devastation, I was absolutely overcome with a feeling of grief. To snorkel in over areas that you'd seen before were beautiful live coral full of fish and see the skeletons of dead coral. It was just a really overwhelmingly depressing experience. One can see the white scar over the top of the coral, and underneath there is a large cluster of snails. And I put my hand in underneath and I can pull out 20 or 30 snails from this one tiny little area.
This coral is dead. It can never spawn again. If the coral spawn does bring the whale sharks here, the problem is serious. And in recent years, whale shark numbers have fallen off. It's time to find out just how much food there is in the water and what it is. Jeff believes that the protein from the coral spawn triggers an explosion of life all along the reef. This cone-shaped net works like a sieve.
It's hard to wind this.
Tiny plants and animals, plankton, will collect in its base. Tropical oceans are often very poor in nutrients, but if Jeff's right, there should be a surge of life following the coral spawning.
Yeah. It's absolutely full.
Yeah, they're strange.
There are actually some of those little gelatinous ones, but I can't see the eyes when they're in the water.
I think they're actually those chitognath things, that unpronounceable name you see in marine biology textbooks. These long things about 1 centimetre long.
Clearly, there's still enough live coral to stimulate an abundance of food. Today, the sea is alive with tiny jellyfish, probably swept out here by the Lewin current drawing the silt-laden water from Exmouth Gulf. It shows that the sea has warmed again after the storm. It's ideal food for whale sharks. In the evening, Jeff follows another hunch. He believes that the reason whale sharks are so rarely seen is because they usually feed at night. That's when the plankton comes to the surface. No one before Jeff has recorded this observation, but the team are willing to try. In the twilight, visibility is low. Even with the full moon, it's hard to see. And all the team knows that night diving can be dangerous.
All right.
Other man-eating sharks feed at night too. But there it is, a whale shark, at the surface, feeding.
Right next to us. Right in front of you, 10 feet away. Come on, let's go. Go, go, go.
Joe, swim out, yeah. Okay,
Vast clouds of krill fill the sea. These tiny deep-water crustacea are the favorite food of whales and of whale sharks. They're attracted to the huge lights, but the divers failed to locate the whale sharks.
When we saw that shark, Mitch had
In a
just come
second
up and told
attempt,
me
Dave Heafy follows the plankton on his echo sounder.
that we were in 30 metres, which meant we were on the line, on the edge, coming up the slope. As we're heading into the deep
The
water,
bright
it's
orange
going-
band is a layer of tiny shellfish, jellyfish and plants, the plankton.
But,
The life was back at the top of that 20-metre line.
As it gets dark, I think we'll find that the plankton, in theory, should come up to the surface.
Well, it's on its way up. That's what those red
Yeah.
marks are.
Yeah.
Time for another trawl.
Well, there's a lot of beasties, but I can't see any krill. Phenomenal amount of stuff in here. When it settles down, we'll see it in the bottle.
The water is alive with zooplankton. These are tiny crabs. They could be the larvae of fiddler crab from the mangrove swamps along Exmouth Gulf. Like the jellyfish and this shrimp larvae, they've been carried out across the reef by the south-flowing Lewin current. An ocean drenched with plankton is ideal for the whale sharks. A tail is sighted and the divers are in the water. For once, Jeff isn't diving. If he's right and the whale sharks are feeding, it's important for him to record it.
Into the light. Amazing.
The sharks charge through the water, sucking in gallons of plankton soup as they go.
You reckon that's the same shape?
The one with the damaged fin's the same one again.
See them, Joe?
I can see the tail of the one that the divers are with. They've still got the lights on him, and there's another one out there that's got a... Oh, there's another new one. There was one out there with a damaged dorsal fin. But there's a third one now. Oh, look at it, you can see right inside the mouth.
It's the first time night feeding has been seen.
Yes?
Underwater, it's an extraordinary sight. The gill flaps churned about by the sheer volume of water forced across the internal filters. Jeff was right. Whale sharks do feed at night. They feed on krill from the ocean or the rich mix of plankton and jellies from the Gulf. They don't feed on the coral spawn itself. But the spawn starts the whole food chain. In the next few days, there were whale sharks aplenty, just as Jeff predicted.
Nets Camp Passage, north of Nets Passage, there's about a
We are very hopeful that the more time we spend out on the water at Ningaloo, the greater the chance that we may see a shark giving birth or see a whale shark with newborn baby whale sharks.
Despite some tantalizing sights, there was no mating to be seen. The second whale shark is just visible behind. In fact, Jeff saw only one female the entire season. Whale shark reproduction remains a great mystery. Jeff believes they give birth to live young like other sharks, and that's something he would love to witness, but not this season. But there were other highlights which repaid all the hard work.
was wonderful.
But they don't say.
How close did you get?
Pardon?
How close did you
They don't
get?
say don't
We
touch
could
them.
touch them. It was just hanging around with us. It was wonderful.
What effect does it have on the whale?
I tickled him under his tummy.
When it doesn't mind, when you're stroking it, you can stroke it, you can touch it. It doesn't mind. But when it decides to go, there's no way you can stay with it. And it just hung around and looked at us and played. And then it decided to go and we just couldn't stay with it. But I mean, we were there for 20 minutes at least. It was lovely. It's actually quite soft to touch. You expect it to be really rough skin, and it's actually quite soft. Except
Under
for the
his
top.
belly, it's very soft, just like a normal fish's belly. And I was stroking him there for about 10 minutes, and he just came and hung vertically in the water. I don't know whether you can see it from the boat, but he just stopped and hung there almost vertical in the water for a while. It was phenomenal, quite phenomenal.
Can you just grab my tank?
It's time for the whale sharks to leave Ningaloo. Where they go next, nobody knows. Ningaloo is a favorite haunt of whale sharks. The coral spawning is vital to this colony of sharks. Their arrival here certainly ties in with it. But their food is the rich mix of krill from the ocean and marine life from Exmouth Gulf. The whale sharks don't feed on the coral spawn itself, but on the rich life which it supports. Jeff's research suggests the population here is around 200, more than anyone ever suspected. And his project is a great success. He tagged 25 sharks and has IDs on 40 altogether. But mating remains an unsolved mystery, and where the sharks go remains a deep puzzle. Whether the same whale sharks return next year, you'll have to wait and see. This season signaled the beginning of Jeff's adventure with whale sharks. The dream of discovery has only just started.